welcome back to the channel. Now this is a box of offcuts. That in itself is nothing wrong. It's all fine to have offcuts, but the trouble is that these aren't mine. These are someone else's. I saw them advertised on an online auction place, and they look really nice. And I kind of got a bit of envy over someone else's offcuts and decided to buy them. Now they're here, I'm feeling a little bit stupid, but we're going to make the best of it that we can. There's a few nice pieces of wood. There's some Zebrano, there's some burls in here, some nice resin pieces as well. So we're going to make a bit of a fruit salad, I think. I'm going to get out my saw and chop them up into manageable sections, about that big, put them into a mould and cover them with resin, and then we'll see what comes out the other end. Okay, right, let's get started. Okay, we've got our little pot full of the offcuts. Now, first thing we're going to decide is how much resin we're going to need to put in here. Now, I'm going to use the rice method, which is fairly simple. What we're going to do is pour as much rice as we can. Give it a shake down, let it get into all the nooks and crannies. Right, I think that's going to suffice. We are going to allow for a little bit extra once we've got the rice out of here, which is easier said than done. Okay, pour this rice carefully into our measuring jug. Right, now that says about 800 millilitres, so I think just to be safe we'll make up a full litre of resin. Okay, I'm using the Let's Resin Deep Pour Epoxy, which is mixed in a 2:1 ratio. Now the easiest way on the measuring cups is to do this one in ounces, because it's nice simple maths. We're going to do 12 ounces of part A, and then it's 50% for part B, so that's another 6 ounces, so that's 18 ounces in total, which equates to about 500 millilitres. Right, I'm not sure if I've got enough left in this one, so I'll start going with this, and then I'll have to open up a new box if I need some more. Right, I'll make both of these now up to 18 ounces with part B. I've got one of these little stirring devices from Let's Resin. All I'm going to do is sit it in the pot and press the button 2 or 3 times. Okay, excellent. Right, I'm just going to put this on a piece of plastic just to drip and get all the remainder off. And we start mixing in some colours. Okay, we're going to be using the Let's Resin mica powders again. So let's have some more fun. What do? There's all sorts of colours going on in that bowl, so let's do wine, and spring green. That's a horrible combination, but it's going to be fun. Right, as we've learnt before with the Let's Resin Deep Pour resins, in order to get the best kind of separation from the colours when you mix them together, you have to let it get to the point of its workability. These resins, you can stay in this state for about 80 minutes. So we're going to mix these up and then leave them for about 70, and then come back in and do the pour. That looks beautiful. I must admit, I can't think of a more horrible combination of colours to put together. This is nearly as bad an idea as me buying somebody else's offcuts. Okay, I'll let those sit. Come back to those in about 70 minutes. Meanwhile, I'm going to have a play around with the positioning of these, just so I can get the nicer bits more to the edge. Right, I'll bring you back when we're about to do the pour. Okay, my pots have had plenty of time to sit. I've taped over the top to stop the bits start to float in the resin. I've left two kind of slightly wider areas at the sides for the resin to be poured in. I was going to attempt a simultaneous pour, but I think I'm going to do intermittent between the two, because that's just an accident waiting to happen, isn't it? Okay, right, I'm going to give this about 5 minutes to settle, because I'm sure there's quite a few little gaps in there just waiting to suck the resin into and air bubbles to be released. So I'll keep going with this, and I'll bring you back when it's dry. We shall be in about 4 days' time. Okay, there we go, it's all dry. We have lost a bit of the level, so I think that was mainly because of the wood absorbing some of the resin. Right, so we'll take this tape off and then we'll see if we can get it out. Ooh, that's nice. I've got a couple of air pockets. That's to be expected. A very big air pocket. That's not ideal. Okay, right. That's going to need sorting with a bit of resin or something like that. But apart from that, it looks pretty good. I think I'm going to put a faceplate on this side. We'll get it on the lathe and get this front edge squared up. Okay, now usually in this kind of situation I would use a tailstock, but the tailstock isn't sitting correctly, it's not sitting on a flat piece, so I'm not going to use that at the start. Now the deep holes we've got where the resin hasn't penetrated, I'm not going to leave it too late before filling those. I may colour some milliput. I think that'll be the best way to deal with those, rather than waiting another 4 days for those bits to dry. They're a bit too deep to use CA glue, so I think the milliput is ideal. Initially we're going to be turning at about 660 RPM. I'm just going to flatten off this surface, and then we can have a quick chat about what this is going to become. Okay, that's got pretty much flat. We still have a couple of holes to work out, but I might figure that into the design for the base. Now, this is going to become a nice little pot, I think. Now, you saw me put screws into the top, which should instantly make you realise that I'm not going to turn a lid from this piece of wood. I'm going to use a separate piece of wood to make the lid, which meant that I was quite happily able to put screws into the top. If you were intending to use this as the lid as well, by cutting it in half, then you could never use screws to start off with, otherwise, you know, it's going to spoil the lid. So I'm going to start thinking about where the recess is going to be needed, and then try and figure out a way of designing this base so I can work out these holes, or whether or not I have to fill them. Okay, the two lines I've put on here signify the different size jaws I could use. This is for the 50mm jaws, and that's for the 100mm. I prefer to use the 100mm if I can, but then I've got a deeper hole there which would come into play. And if I use the 50mm jaws, I can avoid them. Yeah, I think it's going to be a case of using the 50mm jaws, have a foot that extends to about to there, and then just lift it off the base a little bit, and that'll allow me to turn away some of these holes. Anything that is too deep, I'll just fill with either an epoxy putty or with CA glue. Right, but first of all, let's just quickly cut this recess and then take it from there. That's a nice healthy recess. Just make sure there's no voids in there, which there aren't. So I'm going to leave this as the foot of the pot, and I'll start working in here and out to the side, and that should hopefully get rid of these small voids I've got in here. Okay, that's all the major voids gone. The problem we had on this edge also seems to have gone, so that's good. Right, what I'm going to do is just quickly square up the sides, and we'll start addressing the holes we've got on there. I'll get some milliput and I shall be back in a second. This is the milliput we're going to be using. If you haven't used it before, it's basically an epoxy, a normal epoxy that we've used on the outside, but it comes in a putty form. Now we've got two different colours, we've got black and we've got white. And the idea is that we mix some of the hardener and the colour together. When that happens, when it starts to mix and it starts to dry, it'll become completely hard when it dries. Now, I'm using black and white because I'm not quite sure exactly which of these two colour combinations are going to take best with the colour. So I'm going to hedge my bets a little bit and make up a batch of both. Now, if I'd stored this indoors, it would be a lot softer and easier to mix, but it was stored in my shed, so we're going to have a little bit of a problem, but we'll get there. I'm going to knead these together until they are one consistent colour. Okay, I've got these two mixed up. I'm going to mix a portion of the black and the white together to give us a grey, and that may help produce a closer match as well. So I'm going to be making batches up with all three to get us somewhere where we want to be. Okay, I think I've got enough of an idea now what I'm doing to be able to put this onto the piece. So I'll just quickly move the cameras again and we'll start filling these holes. Now this one's quite deep, so I'm going to pack a bit of the base first because I'm fairly sure it'll go all the way through once we've hollowed this out. So I don't want to waste my other mixed colours. Okay, I think that's got them all. Right, we're going to give this 10 to 12 hours to dry, and then we'll come back and carry on. Okay, it's the next morning. The millie put's all nice and hard and firm, ready to turn back. Before I do that though, I'll quickly want to sand the base, finish it, and then turn it round. And then we can work more on the sides because we have to do that in conjunction with the lid as well. So I'll quickly get that done, turn it round, and then I'll bring you back. Sanded the base, turned it round. We do have one slight problem to overcome. When I was removing the faceplate, we've lost a screw head. So we've got to quickly take that out first. I'll show you what I'm going to do. I'm going to get the parting tool and cut down either side of it. And then hopefully with a pair of pliers I'll be able to get in there and get it out. I'll do that first before we start the rest. There we go, we got it. Okay, now I've got the screw out. I'm just going to face this off so it's nice and flat. And we can use this as a jam chuck to start helping form the lid. I'll show you what I mean in a second. A nice piece of holm oak, which I'm going to be using for the lid. Holm oak, which is H-O-L-M, if you're not familiar with it, is a native oak species you'll find in the Mediterranean. One of its unique properties is that it's an evergreen oak. It does grow across Europe. In fact, I've got one of these trees in my back garden and it's absolutely beautiful. And the grain on this oak is absolutely incredible, so I'm looking forward to making a lid from it. Right, what we're going to do is bring up the tailstock, wedge this into place, and then we can turn a tenon on here so we can hold it in the jaws and then use the jaws to hollow out the inside and create the lid. And I think first of all I'm just going to put a little bit of tape on here, double-sided tape, just to help stick this to it. That should do it. Now the tape isn't entirely necessary, as the pressure from the tailstock should always hold that in place, but you know, I do prefer to be safer rather than sorry. Okay, what we can do now is turn the tenon on here, which will end up being part of the finial for this piece. Okay, now we can separate these two and hollow out the bowl. will do for hollowing out the inside. I don't want to go any thinner on the walls because I've got to marry the lid up to it, and we've still got to sort out the outsides. So I need a little bit of wiggle room in case I mess up. And come on, chances are high. Right, I'm going to sand this again off camera. You will get to see some sanding, don't worry. And I'll bring you back when we're starting to work on the lid. Okay, sanding and finishing went well on the inside. What we have to do now is cut a tenon on the lid that'll fit nice and snugly inside this rim. We're doing it a bit at a time, offering it up, checking it, and then refining it until it fits perfectly. I will leave a little bit of sanding room to allow us to finish it. When we've got that right, we can hollow out a bit of the inside, but don't forget we have to leave some meat on this to create a finial on the top. Okay, that white line is just to help me get it close first of all before I start bringing it into measure. Obviously nowhere near yet. Excellent, I think we'll call that. Yeah, fits. Right, that should give you enough room to put a small sand on that and be able to fit it nice and snugly at the end. Right, I'm just going to quickly face off this and just put a small curve on the inside. Okay, that's pretty good. I'm going to quickly sand this little bit and just put a bit of finish on there. And then we'll put the bottom back in the jaws, marry up the lid to it, bring up the tailstock, and we can start working the sides. Okay, now a second ago, these fit in beautifully together. Oh, there we go. That's better. Right, now that's a good tight fit, but despite that, of course, we're going to use tailstock as well. That's going to securely hold that lid onto the base. Now we've got these two together, we can work our way up and down the sides and create a nice shape. That's making a wonderful noise. I think it's the two polished surfaces rubbing against each other just slightly. It won't last forever, I'm sure you. Right, we've got a nice little angle. I'm quite happy with that. I don't want to do too much with that because, as you know, I'm a great fan of simplicity. So I'm just going to start creating a bit more of this lid shape. Figure out how I'm going to work a finial into this. I like that finial. I may have created the most difficult thing in the world to sand, but I'm sure we'll figure out how. I'm going to sand the top first, and then I'm going to take the tape off and sand the rest. If I feel that it's going to be unsafe, I'll bring up the tailstock, put a bit of wood between the two so it doesn't mark the top. Right, you are going to watch this bit. Some of it anyway, and I'll bring you back when it's done. Sanding was tiring, but well. Right, I think we're safe enough to take the ball away to put the finishes on. And I know that generally the famous last words, aren't they? All right, I'll leave it there. Well, sort the top of the finial when we're done. Okay, for the inside, bottom, and the inside of the lid, I've initially put a coat of my favourite shellac on, and then over the top with an abrasive paste. So we'll do the same to the sides and the top of the lid. Okay, I'll let this sit for a little bit to dry off, and then we'll go over the top with the abrasive paste. Okay, that's all nice and dry. So again, with the True Grit abrasive paste, clean off the excess as usual with isopropyl alcohol. Let that evaporate. Okay, and now for a final coat of microcrystalline wax. Okay, I'll sort out the top of the finial, and then we can take a look at what we've done. Well, there we go. A resin pot made from someone else's offcuts. I did feel a bit of a fool buying those offcuts, but it just goes to prove that one man's trash can be another man's treasure. I really like this one. It's come out beautifully. All the different wood types in there, and all the different epoxy pieces. It really does make for something quite remarkable. I'm also very pleased the way the Let's Resin has kept nice and separate. We've got the blues around here and the burgundy reds around here. That's worked out brilliantly. I'm glad we've got the hang of it now, and we can go on to do more and more interesting things. The Holm oak lid really just helps set this whole thing off. It really is one of my favourite woods, and I wish I could get a lot more of it, but it is quite hard to get in reasonable sized chunks. If you are interested in giving something like this a go, I would certainly encourage you to do so, because it's not that difficult. If you've got lots of offcuts, just chop them up, put them in a pot with some resin in, and then get it on the lathe, see what comes out. If you want to try the Let's Resin, then there are links in the description below with a discount code as well. Anyway, there we go. If you've enjoyed this one, then I would appreciate a like and subscribe and all that kind of thing. And if you leave a comment as well, they're going to be entered into the giveaway when we next do one. We've just done one for 2 years, so the next one may be a few weeks away, but if you've left a comment, then you are going to be entered. Right, apart from that, thank you very much indeed for watching, and I shall see you all next time. Thank you.